कृपया ध्यान दीजिए, the language used on the podcast may not be fit for consumption. We warn you, tread carefully. But listen, yaar, don't be so conservative. Yes, welcome to Cyrus Says. And before we bring in our guests, and it's all about cults today. I actually thought of starting my own cult. I actually did start it. I even had initial idea of charging people to be members of the cult. That actually went against me because we didn't get too much membership. So now I've realized to get into a cult, you need to first get a band of people around you and then you charge. You need to have a base, let's just say like a quotient, a quorum rather. Maybe 10, 15, 20, depends on what kind of cult you are. So I'm going to try my cult all over again, but only after I speak to a man who's given us a lovely documentary or insight into the lives of one of India's finest human beings, one of the greatest philosopher kings to come out of this country, a man called Swami Nityanand, who owns his own island, apparently, and has lots of followers. Some of them who leave the island and are never seen again, and some who are trying to preach the reverse gospel of what the hell were we doing there. This is all exposed by our good friend, Mr. Naman Saraiya, who joins us now. His documentary is actually called... what is it called, Naman? The research I've done.
It's called My Daughter Joined a Cult.
My Daughter Joined a Cult. What a scary line, actually.
Yeah, sensational name, I have to say. Look. But and it's now streaming on Discovery Plus globally. And was produced by Vice Studios. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to mention that it released on June 2nd, even though Vinay, my producer, said it is releasing on June 2nd. Let me explain to you, Vinay, bhai, that June 2nd has passed many days ago. I know this because June 3rd is my wife's birthday, so I remember that day. I live in fear of that. That's my own cult. Make a film on that one day. Naman, first let me get this off my chest rather. Are you related to Samir Saraiya? Sarita Saraiya, Bharat Saraiya, Pratap Saraiya, of course, who are now in heaven.
Samir Saraiya is actually my uncle, but I don't know if we'll be talking about the same Samir Saraiya. But
does he live in Malba Hill, Sunita Building, 11A?
Well, I wish, but no. I would love
an
uncle in Malba Hill. Well, I mean...
What the hell? Does he make sex toys for a living?
No, but
then it's not the same
my colleagues were doing a show about... sex in India like a few years ago, and they were like, dude, the sex toy guy is called Samir Saraiya, and I was like,
he's my classmate. We're proud of him.
But my chacha is a MBA with
hey, don't look down on the... You could be a double MBA from water to make sex toys.
I'm trying to find the next word, like with a food... Yeah. With Apna
He's a conventional sort of
that type of thing.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, is he moonlighting as a sex toy maker? Because that would be like quite cool.
It's a startup dream. You think out of the box, and then the guy comes from this Ivy League sort of background and has a conventional job in an MNC, and then goes suddenly and starts and makes millions with this startup. Come on. So I'll check with Samir. Yeah. You must be... They're not that many Saraiya. So I'm sure there's some relation here or there.
I know my family is the only one from Calcutta. That we know for sure.
But I just want to mention, for those who don't know, the Saraiya family is so rich. Naman may be distantly related, or he claims to not have very close relations with the ones we were talking about. But they own the whole of Malba Hill land property. Almost all of it. They had... you please check your antecedents, where you come from, bro. Stop making silly shows and get on with it. There's money to be made, Saraiya.
Yeah. Need to get on with this ancestry line and like...
Join the sex toy industry once you're done with
this. Get into the will. Forget the industry. Just get into the will.
They've cut you guys out, man. I'm telling you. All right, listen, let's get back to a far more important subject, which is this fabulous show that you've made. Let's do it together. Let's talk about your life as well as the show at the same time, simultaneously in a sense. Because the first question is, why did Naman... What is the appeal of these documentaries? Well, I like them. But why would you as a young man decide to go this way?
Okay, so... I think when I was I'll rewind it a little bit. When I was in college, I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to be an investigative journalist. Obviously not at par with family expectations of a Gujarati
This is pre or not?
Yeah, in fact, I'll come to that. This is, pre or not, but you're that nerdy kid in school who's like writing essays in like the school magazine, and everyone, all the English teachers are like, wow, he can speak English and he can write English. So like being a writer sort of seemed like a natural like progression to wanting to be a journalist. And I was from Calcutta, so obviously the unnecessary intellect quotient is turned up because you're in Calcutta. So,
you Calcuttans are wonderful. You push the stereotype. Everywhere else is like people try to deny the stereotype. You guys are like, yes, we are artsy, we are cultural.
I mean, in my last 2 years of school. So, but I mean, the stereotype doesn't play that well to me because I'm Gujarati from Calcutta. It's not like, I've
You
got
can
the
take the best of
jhola.
both worlds.
Yeah,
So after being very well educated and cultured, don't we have someone like that in office? Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah.
And it was sort of in that like realm. And then I went to like media school, and journalism class was great, but I was also like deeply invested in like the film and documentary like classes that were going on. So I'd sit in like to both of those. Well, I think after like, when you have to kind of get placed and stuff, I was like, this Telka kind of a gig seems like super hectic. I don't know if I'm cut out for it. Applying for something which was like serious journalism, right? And I ended up at NH7 Indecision, writing for a music magazine, which seemed cool. I got a great salary, well, more than what my friends were getting who joined like mainline newspapers and stuff. So it seemed like a good opportunity. And this was like OML before it was OML of comedians and all, right? So it was, I was there at NH7 Weekender working.
Oh, right. That's what they started with. Okay,
Exactly,
okay.
yeah. It was a
Then they
music
got
magazine.
sidetracked by comedy. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, sidetracked. Yeah, I guess that's well now
they sold out, bro. They sold out with silly comedians running around in bars instead of making great award-winning dramas which will test the standards of time, which you'll leave behind. Come on.
So that's how I started out. Like I started out in like culture, lifestyle, music, journalism, writing, or whatever you could call it. I did it for a year. I went to like Xavier's to waste time, and I guess
this is Xavier's camp.
Xavier's in Bombay after working at OML. And I was like, the only good thing I think that came out of it was
so I met my evening class thingy that they used to do, right?
No. It was a whole day thing, but a 9-month program.
Okay, so it's all changed from my time. I apologize because I remember they had a window for film and that kind of thing, which was not really. It was like a diploma.
Thing with lots of established alumni. I don't know how many of them claim it, but yeah.
On the they have the names on the sheet. That's good enough. Yeah.
So I did all of that. So generally, I have noticed people who move into more like long form, serious, I guess, shows and filmmaking and stuff generally have done the serious stuff in like as an investigative journalist or reporters or on the ground and that kind of stuff. Mine was okay, let's do all the musty with the culture and like food shows and all sorts of stuff. Like I did lots of stuff initial 4-5 years of my career.
It's like sowing your wild oats in a sense, cinematically. You did all the nonsense and got it out of your system sort of thing. Is that what you're trying to say also? Yeah.
I mean, it was great. Like you writing about a band from Colaba who 30 people care about. But
God, you're destroying so many people. I'm just thinking, well, we both are. People who make food shows,
being a hater was cool.
Small-time band members, people who support that industry. But no, that's fine. That's fine.
No, I was fully entrenched in it and still am like on the like outer rings of it. I mean, I had like a cliche at some point mid-career, had a transformative experience of traveling to the Himalayas with like Shantanu Moitra and his wildlife photographer and Dhritiman Mukherjee for 100 days and documenting their journey. So I was like, what is the point of all this? Bombay sucks. Let me leave. And then I came back and I joined, like Vice was kind of coming to India then. So I was, I guess,
this is Discovery's platform, right?
No, Vice is the independent like media group from New York, Canada. There's obviously known for like, I guess, all sorts of hard-hitting documentaries, new age journalism, but also do shows like, oh, look at me smoking a black bong through a pineapple. So all sorts of content, including like the Bikram Yogi Predator documentary that was there on Bikram Anger. Yeah, so I guess the last 4-5 years have been more of like a bent into, I guess, more socially conscious stuff. Yeah,
we'll segue into that in a second. I just want, there's a comment that we had to ignore. I don't want to stop your flow. Rishi, can we play the comment again? Somebody who just tuned into the show. Satya Narayanan says, just finished watching Cult. Fantastic documentary. The anger still that I have is how these memes about Nityananda actually projected like fun element. I wish he's soon pulls out of that green room. Okay, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one of the major hopes of the documentary, right? Like that this guy, this alleged Godman, self-styled, self-proclaimed Godman, Baba, has made such a joke of himself through like this memification that's happened over the last few years, that people seem to have forgotten like the trail of like, I guess
family is being destroyed in his wake.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of stuff he's done over the years. It's like the spectrum of crimes. The other day a friend was asking me like, oh, so what crimes? We are also so exposed to cult and serial killer documentaries now that they're like, oh, to kya, isne alag kya kiya hai? And I was like, he's got the
How do you raise
spectrum.
the bar? How do you raise the bar in terms of crime? Yeah, okay.
And like he's got a spectrum of like, crimes. Like it's yeah. I mean, sometimes I lose it. Like it's like, what the hell is going
But
on?
here's the
Like,
question, Naman. So why did you target? I mean, not why. Obviously, once you got into it, it makes sense. But where did it come into your head that Nityanand is the guy you want to investigate? There must have been some.
okay.
How do you get that information?
Okay, so I'll tell you how the whole thing played out. So Vice also functions as a studio, right? So they work with different partners and streaming platforms, and so I think there was some interest within the team there. I used to be like a full-time employee there, but now I'm freelance. So people can call me for more jobs. What happened was there was an idea within the team there to create like a documentary about searching for this so-called mythical land of Kailasa, which seemed quite a ballsy and like ambitious like idea to do. It would just mean someone have to like fly in with a hidden camera and like, I guess, pledge allegiance to this guy. That obviously didn't work out.
And quickly, sorry to cut, the location was somewhere in South. Where was it exactly?
Yeah, so there's a couple of like mixed like ideas. One is Vanuatu off the coast of Australia. One was Ecuador. And then obviously the Indian Ministry of External Affairs was like, Ecuador's High Commissioner said, no, we've not given this guy asylum. Somewhere in Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica. There's a mix of like ideas of where this guy could be. And we obviously wanted to get into that. So that was the core idea. And that evolved into like in the end of 2019, there's a father, Janardhan Sharma, who was also a member of this, I guess, ashram. And his children were also part of it. So the ashram also had a Gurukul where like, if you are, I guess, an Adi Nivasi in the Adinam, your children will be part of the Gurukul. And obviously, I see
like
the
university.
I see the lure in that, right? Yeah. So it's like, there's campus for kids also. Like, we will teach your children regular stuff and teach them in Hindu studies and stuff like that, right? So this guy had like all his kids were there, and two of them were like adults, right? So they were 18 and 21. So what happened was they were moved from one ashram to the other, and that kind of became the sort of escape route to take these guys away to where Kailasa is. So that was in the news a lot towards the end of 2019. And I guess that kind of became a peg for the studio to develop this concept. And I guess that's how the name My Daughter Joined the Cult also came up. And that's around the time when the show kind of got commissioned based on the idea that there is, of course, like much more to this story. I got on board, and then there was a researcher already working on this. And when I was presented with the general info, I looked at I started reading into it and the whole like timeline of it, and I was like, holy shit, there's like way too much in here. And again, because we're so exposed to all these cult, serial killer kind of documentaries, you're like, how do I tell all of this? And I think the most interesting part was that it spans like almost 2 decades. Like, India's gone through that change in this time. Governments have changed. Internet has become cheap as hell. Unemployment is high. It's like
Conman has let loose on the world.
Yeah, lots of evolutions in. I mean, when this guy started out, I was, not even a teenager. So I'm like, there's a lot to, dive into this situation. And I guess as a journalist and filmmaker, this is like a pinnacle of both your aspirational dreams coming together to be able to tell a story like this, right? So
without giving the story, we want people to watch it and not, but we have to just get into it a little bit. So the setup basically is, or rather the premise sort of is, there's this guy who starts his own cult. It flourishes. We're not sure on which locations, but they're exotic locations. He seems to get commissions from everywhere, has a decent following, lots of money. And then he's got a strange thing that happens, which is the parents, the elders, suddenly get disillusioned, which you'll probably tell us a little bit about. And then they come back, but the kids, or who are young adults at that point, do not want to come back. Is this correct?
Correct. So what happens is, like most cults, right? Like you come into them at perhaps, maybe it's not good to generalize this, but at a time when you need some kind of outlet, or you need some kind of dependency, or something to, I guess, escape the mundane.
You're at a bad time in your life sort of thinking, and you need something to cling to. Is that it? The crutch?
Correct. Yeah. And obviously with someone like Nityananda, it was also around the time when lots of this stuff was also on the rise in general in South India, I would say. I mean, and North India, but I'm talking about specifically when you study like South India.
Let's polarize the country over cults.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it was post Satya Sai Baba, but also around the time Art of Living was also becoming big. ISKCON was obviously like...
Who are you calling a cult? Naman, you need security. Be very careful,
No,
bro. We
I'm
can't
just
protect
saying,
you.
like, in terms of Godman and people who, like, I
They
guess...
were flourishing, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So people obviously get attracted to this. And then there is an added layer of, I guess, religion or yoga or meditation, whatever it is that kind of gives you that comfort, right? And it becomes easy, like, for this person to eventually... And one of the experts, like cult experts we spoke to, or cult interventionists we spoke to in Philadelphia, he said that no one starts off like thinking I'll be a cult leader. They just feel they're enlightened or empowered and want to spread that message. And that's how Nityananda's like early kind of life was. Like, of course, in the documentary, you can only say verified information to kind of retain your credibility, right? But when we went on the ground, people are like, he used to come to this village in Tichangur, like a couple of hours from Salem, and he would apparently heal people with like a magic touch, and people would line up with this guy. He took us to the house where apparently Nityananda used to come, and like, people would line up. And
but this is like going back to the Jesus, again, I'm not trying to cause any controversy, but if they say they got healed, what do you think really happened? I mean,
it could be, I think it could be like the same thing, like, what do you call it? Homeopathy. I mean, like, it's placebo, like it's a sugar pill. Yeah. Like
sugar high.
Yeah. I mean, that's my take on homeopathy. But lots of people swear by it.
True. But if a guy's lame, let's say, and he touches the guy and the guy starts walking, is that really possible? Or he thinks he's walked.
I guess it's projecting that how much you want to believe and project. Yeah, it's
Are there drugs involved? Narcotics
is a question everyone asks me, because I guess now everyone's vision is tainted by Sacred Games and that Gochi, like, or whatever Pankaj he was feeding them, right? So I'm sure at some point somewhere there is. It's fair to assume that there could be alleged malpractice, but this house where he would come and like do this, invariably you have to partner with a famous or like influential person. So what ends up happening is then that, I guess, the famous man in the village is like, oh my God, Swamiji is, I am his
So he's
patron.
The benefactor and the patron, and then he gets his vow. This guy gets his vow sort of thingy. And the psychophants that Indians are, they're enough of that to just come and pow pado.
Exactly. So it's like, some big guy in the village is like, he cured my wife in the hospital of like whatever.
Can he cure my wife?
So I'm not going to fall into any of these segues of yours.
What do you think? Just tell me your expert opinion. You've been around this whole thing much more than we have. What do you think actually happens for a person, a private citizen, or whatever they are, to actually believe that something has happened? Let's just say from a science point of view, nothing could happen. And there's just no way he can touch somebody and, their illness go away. So what do you think really happens then?
Transcendental experience, I guess, of being in the presence of someone who you feel could give you that outlet or comfort, or
like
yeah. So in fact, one of the women we spoke to on camera in the documentary, she's she's a media studies professor now, but like at an earlier time did visit. The process of getting people to agree to speak with you are varied. Like, some people are more than willing to tell their story and share it with you and appear on camera. Some are hesitant because, they don't want to reveal a part of their life in the past and all of those sorts of things. So one of the conversations I kept having with her was, she said, Naman, have you never had a transcendental like experience, or have you never felt that energy? And I thought about like over the years in my life where I've had, and the most recent I could feel and like could share with her too, I guess, maybe not as a ploy to convince her to be on camera with us, but I was like, let me dig deep and bare my soul with her as well. And I was like, 4-5 years ago, I saved up all this money as a young 20-something. And I was like, I want to go watch my favorite band in Europe or whatever. They're never going to come to India. And on the 2.5 hours of that concert, I was ugly crying for 2 hours. And I felt an out-of-body experience watching them live. So I gave her that example and she was like, see, this is what I mean. Energies exist and they can like So it could be that people experience these sorts of
So you're in a basically highly emotional state brought about by your own sort of
highly emotional
mental
state. You are
desires.
vulnerable, and there's this person kind of completes that or gives you that sort of like solace in that state of mind. And another thing is that, say you're in a room, say I tell you tomorrow that Cyrus, come, let's go watch whatever, Mr. John or someone in like whatever Bandra Bandstand, and he's a great teacher, and he will change your life if you listen to him and whatever. And we go, and there's like 100 people. There's 90 are into it, like they're swaying, they're like moved by this, tears, and all of that is happening. We are part of the 10 who are not. 5 are curious. The other 5 are like,
bakwas.
Maybe there's something, no, or bakwas, or being haters and like whatever, or being objective and like all scientific about it. And the other 5 are like curious. Maybe mere mein kuch galat hai, because these 90 are totally feeling it. So that effect, that mob mentality, like that mob effect, also takes over, right? Because you're like, is something wrong with me in this scenario? Because these 90 are totally feeling it. So, you feel part of like a small group that is not. And then the other 5 who are complaining, saying, oh, this is bullshit, isme kuch nahi hota hai, ye wo, you get sidetracked. It's kind of like that, right? And also with someone like Nityanand, what happened was he is from Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu, came into Karnataka on the outskirts of Bangalore, halfway to Mysore, set up this like ashram. Obviously, land given is through like, you have to have
Government,
friends and rich
patronage,
people who NRIs who are investing into you, and they're like 7-day program, inner enlightenment or inner awakening is what he was called, which he took
sounds
from
really spiritual.
yeah,
7 days to cleanse your soul.
he took this, I think, if I'm not wrong, from like he took a leaf out of Sadhguru's cap, who does a thing called inner engineering. So Nityananda's thing is called inner awakening. It's all from the same playbook eventually, right? And you end up like kind of, you go there, you feel like this is going to change my life and all of that. And he started off with like a lot of this. Also, he spoke English. So, and he spoke Tamil. So he was bringing in people from Tamil Nadu who were obviously coming for these sermons. And see, for someone who is looking at, being, I guess hunger can solve a lot of issues in our country as well, right? Like, you're like, if I go to the ashram, at least my food is taken care of. So when you look at lower sections of society, like not as privileged people who perhaps want to lean into religion, lean into spirituality. Spirituality in our country largely is guys like under the guise of religion. Like it's not spirituality. It's not like separate the two.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. It can be and it should be, but nahi ho raha hai. You're like, oh my God, I have all these comforts here. And obviously you find a path. And then for the rich people, I love this example when you were speaking to someone during the research. They're like, for rich people, they want to align with God, alleged Godman, or like something like this, because they feel like when they donate, they lost their way, or they're giving back. Yeah. Because if you have so much money, you're always scared of losing it. So
I heard it's also, it's a safety thing also. Like an insurance, let's keep God happy, give him his hafta, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I think you're probably the only person who can answer this, who's on a PhD on Nityanand. What do you think? Can you go into his mind and tell me? It's a very tough question to ask anyone, because obviously how can you know for sure? But what do you think his intent was as a young man, having studied all this and made this documentary? What do you think the intent was? The intent in some way noble initially? Was the intent to help people? Was the intent just, wow, the people are so stupid, I can just do what I want with them?
I mean, it might anger some people, but I guess to give him the benefit of doubt, there was probably the intent was noble. Like, it is that, right? Power corrupts sort of a thing. So eventually when that inner group of 5, 10, 15, 20 becomes 100 becomes 1,000, then people from the neighboring villages start coming more.
So he starts believing his own myth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is why I say we should stop saying sir in India, You start, as you make a little money or whatever, people give you more respect. You start believing you're some sort of godlike figure. The same guy with $10 more in your pocket.
Yeah,
so this is almost like our fault.
Producer, Vinay, you have to stop calling me Naman sir. I'm Naman.
Yeah, why is he calling you Naman sir? We'll stop him. But no, this is a great point that you brought up. I'm trying to figure out how very often, just like politicians sometimes, they come with some sort of zeal and righteousness. And, some of them actually, there's noble intent. There is. If you look back at the youth and all that, they're not the criminals growing up. And then suddenly they get, corrupted by a system or believe their own myth or the sycophants around them, or suddenly they realize how easy it is to make money of morons who are just, throwing their lot in and hoping that you'll solve everything for them by just entering the ashram. or things like that. But
I mean, they
so
didn't take Spider-Man seriously. They didn't
yeah,
hear the lines with great power.
great responsibility. Yeah, oops. Even I know that. It's not bad for pop culture. Yeah. All right. And then let's get back to the story. So now let's get back to the plot again. So this is an amazing thing, which I really find strange. The family comes en masse into the ashrami thingy. They buy it together as a group. Horrible metaphor to that would be, you support, or everybody supports Manchester United in
Yeah,
the
India's
family.
national football team is
National football
Manchester
team.
United.
Exactly. And then suddenly two of them say, no, I'll go with Liverpool. Yeah, that really happens. So how did that sort of dichotomy happen between the family members, without giving away, obviously, the juicy details which are there for which we have to watch the show?
So one principle, or I guess methodology, which cults sort of employ, is the base of secrecy, right, and independence. So once you're in, it gives you a sense of false independence. That okay, because you don't have much going for you in your life outside, in a way. Here you are given tasks, you're given responsibility, you're like in charge of, so you feel that sovereignty, and you're like, okay, yes, I am empowered. One is that. Second is, you don't need family. This is your family, and I am like, you pledge allegiance or like your worship to
Meaningfulness,
this one person.
purpose sort of thinking is what you're saying.
Yeah, like whether you're in charge of like the food, or like, I guess, waking everyone up for like yoga at 4 a.m. or whatever, like the
So
task
why does the
is.
rich guy with the MBA background from whatever, why does he
Perhaps
cling to this?
disillusioned with career, or perhaps this, like, done with like what more can I do to like give back to society, so to say. It's almost like, I'm going to use this. I said this in an interview a couple of days ago. It's a paraphrasing of what someone says in the documentary. This lovely lady, Brinda Adeke, she says that people consider this to be a shortcut to heaven. It's like, now I don't need to do everything. Whatever I do is to this one leader, and that person will bring me closer to heaven. It's like a coupon code for God is what I had said, basically.
Cutting the line in a sense.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I am now number one to get there.
Naman, you've convinced me. I'm going to start a cult. This is just sounding fantastic because people,
yeah.
What you're saying. I don't know whether you realize what you're saying, but what you're saying is that they intoxicate themselves in a sense. He doesn't have to do much. You get in and you start, your self-belief is auto sort of self-belief which is happening. But you
and
find,
then the second thing, like I was saying, it functions in secrecy. So because you want to then be closer and closer to this leader, or in this case, Nityanand, right? You start doing things, you become there's mistrust. So cults function on secrecy, like the amount of secrecy. Everyone who's supposedly
why do they do that?
Because then they hold that power of you. That's manipulation, right? So if Nityanand says to me X that, okay, I know this about you, if you go out of line, and not in this threatening way, it's almost in this
just there in the background.
You will have a bad time, or if you leave me, you will never find samadhi, or whatever, like the, I guess, technical word for it like is being used, right? So you start trying to one up everyone you are surrounded by, and then it's like, yeah, we are a unit, but I have to one up everyone. So it functions on that. And that, what is interesting, again, this cult interventionist he explained it so beautifully, because he himself used to be in Maharishi's cult in the 60s and 70s.
Wow, the Beatles. What are you saying?
Yeah. He gave us a great story.
Sexy Sadie, what have you done? You made a fool of everyone. Sexy Sadie, what have you done?
Exactly. And he gave us a great story about, anyway, I'll come to it later. He said that, cults, everyone who's a follower is not the cult member. The cult is formed with your close unit. Like the cult is the inner circle. Everyone else is buying into the idea of the cult, or like the myth, or the followers, right? Nityanand today on Facebook has more than 1 million followers or whatever. But if you see, speaking in digital marketing terms, his engagement is very limited. It's just that little bubble, right? Like, Swamiji, love you, this, that.
25
Swamiji,
people are involved in the engagement, but get it.
So that's what ends up happening. It's like this, the inner circle becomes so strong and are out to get each other, but no, they need each other to survive, sort of a thing. And then
Again, what you're saying is, I think, very true, because this code of secrecy, this omerta, if you like, it sort of makes it more interesting to people outside. Anything that's shrouded in secrecy, you just think about anything in the world, and we just get so into it because we just want to know what's behind the curtain, sort of thingy. But we'll have to take a quick break, Naman. As usual, you're speaking so much, man. The whole time is just flown, and then we'll come back because I want to talk about the sexual politics, which is also very much part of the show. because you can't get away from all the vices. I know Vice is the name of the platform, or the company rather. And when we come back, Abbas will join us. He's a virgin.
Just
and he's
one
not
thing
joined
I wanted to add.
Yes.
There's a bunch of people on the comments saying should add subtitles for regional languages in the documentary. I have to say, guys, just hit the settings button. There is subtitles.
What a bunch of morons. We're just kidding. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Naman is going to talk a little bit more about the show and his life when we return. Let's go into the break. Yes, we're joined by Abbas, our producer, a cult member in the early years of Nityanand, who escaped. And he's going to tell you that, and this seems to be, again, par for the course. Naman, please fill us in. Very interested to know. So when does the god have feet of clay and slowly the exposure becomes more apparent to everybody? Hence, the adults start leaving, hence the show that you made. When does the mirror crack, so to speak?
I guess it requires one big scandal. But in his case, it reverse engineered his career almost. So there was a group of devotees who kind of got to know that he was being, I guess, predatory with young women in the ashram, and they sort of banded together and planted a camera, and there was a tape revealed of him, which became massive in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka specifically, and then it became national news, and all of that happened in 2010 March. And the idea, because we obviously went deep into the research, and the whistleblowers thought that this would bring him down. And one of the women who was being sort of targeted by him as well was deep into it, and she thought that this was a service
consensual sexual relations.
Well, one was, but again, in the idea of a cult, the idea of consent kind of gets really blurry because there is an idea of power structures and how, I guess, that is being played out, right? So it's hard to call it consensual. Whereas the tape that was released, the person in that, the actress in that, they claimed that it was obviously consensual. One of the journalists we spoke to for the documentary, Dhanya Rajendran, editor of News Minute, she said that as a journalist then, she did not find anything to be wrong with the tape because it was two adults in their room. Then another journalist adds that, well, but we as Indians, our psyche doesn't permit us to view Swamis and Godman and Baba, anyone with a religious garb, to be doing all those things, So that created a full-on furor, and there was mega protests and stuff. However, with Nityanand, of course, that led to FIRs. He was on the run for a while from Bangalore. He was in Haridwar for Kumbh Mela, Rishikesh, and then he escaped to Himachal.
Good place to hide as a Swami. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amongst 1 lakh similarly dressed people. Yeah.
And then he escaped to Himachal, and all of that happened. The police tracked him down, arrested him. He got bail. Then there was a rape charge. It only catapulted him from a regional hero to a national name. And then there were more and more we've covered that, especially.
He should be on Big Boss that year, 2010. What's going on?
So I have to tell you, in our research, we did find that they did try to get him onto it, and he was interested. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, given the state of affairs in the country, if he would have been on Big Boss. I mean,
and won
I'd love to. Swami, what is this behavior, Swami?
Swami, aapka task hai.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Salman would have gone berserk, man. This is American twang. It would have been a great. What a mess up that would have been. Salman from Bandra versus Nityanand. Yeah. Hey, Abbas is a great. You do good, Salman, Abbas?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
It's not in my repertoire, yeah.
No, not yet.
I have to say before we let Abbas speak, because I thought, it'll be tough to get a word in with Cyrus. Honestly, I watched enough of MTV Bakra in my life.
I apologize. My cult didn't work out. Sorry about that.
I have to say, there was a podcast that you guys had done where Cyrus was very excited about the prospect of Kailasa. And during my research, it came up, and I was like, you should totally license this, guys, to segue into the segment where we talk about Kailasa.
Yeah, I hate to say this because we're belittling it, and it's a horrid crime as well. But his name brings a smile. It's like Arnab or Rahul Gandhi or whatever. It's just there. You immediately smile because of his shenanigans. The full idea of an island, a separate country, currency, passport, what have you. So I mean, if we were just three guys hanging out and we spoke about him, we start smiling initially. We would just make you laugh. And I don't know whether that's the wrong attitude or what it is, but it's how it is imprinted in your mind. And hence, this documentary will clear all that and tell you the pitfalls and the darkness that comes along with all from the family point of view. Let's quickly get into that before Abbas gets into the AMAs and everything else. People are dying to ask you questions. Just a little bit without giving it away. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was one of the major things in fact, that's one of the major arcs we've taken in the documentary as well. That because this guy was so memified, and became this sort of almost a pop culture phenomena in some way over the last 5-7 years, especially. He really kind of used social media to his advantage, and we kind of got to know that, of course, a lot of that was coming out of his ashram itself. It was almost to, I guess, change the perspective of what this guy, the perception changed, right? And of course, my personal opinion is that I feel that he had enough time from when the first charges against him were made public, and there was this public outcry and all of that. It led to many other scandals eventually, including religious scandals, that he had enough time to plot and escape, and perhaps set up this country and so to say. I mean, there's this amazing bit we've uncovered in the docu where, there's a video released by the Ministry of External Affairs where obviously when this Kailasa thing was done and he had escaped, and they were like, oh, he's in Ecuador, blah, 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 all of that. And the Ministry of External Affairs says that we don't know how he is, they say we've cancelled his passport. So there's this journalist who's like, so, but how did he escape then? We're looking into it. This was around the time Ecuador was like, no, we have not given him asylum. Mm-hmm. The idea is the charge happened in 2010 and then 2012, but the trial began in 2018. And then the non-bailable warrant for this rape charge was...
But wasn't his passport with the police?
Exactly. So he had enough time to, again, from what we've heard on the ground, is he created a fake passport of one of these countries, actual a real passport, or bought that citizenship. One of the last things we heard was he's got a passport for Belize, and he obviously escaped from Nepal. You get into Nepal, you need a driver's license.
Seems to be the way out of India for most people, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, that stamp is not, firstly, it's not an Indian passport, and then the stamp is not of an Indian airport. We've heard crazy stories. Again, you can't incorporate all of them into the documentary because you need to have two sources that verify it, and the legal procedure is obviously that. But there were so many wild stories that sometimes I felt that outside of the myth that he has created for himself, and that the, so to say, organization and devotees I guess fuel the fire of those myths, there is a series of heinous crimes that this guy has committed, destroyed lives, families, people's morale, everything in the wake of his bullshit in some way. That when we were making it, when we were making all of this, sure, when we would find we'd also have jokes about it, but then you realize that, man, this guy is not worth the jokes because he's a criminal. It's like when Ted Bundy's documentary came out, everyone was like, oh my God, he's so hot. I was like, yeah, but he killed people.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, you're right. Now, how can they say that? Oh, he's a good looking guy and all that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but lekin haath mein chaku hai.
Consistently, it's not a one-off where he lost his temper or something.
He's serial killer. Yeah, it's not a one-off thing. Yeah.
So where's Nityanand now? Post the documentary, what's his status?
Well, legally on speaking, the show ends with saying he's still missing, which is true because, I feel if they wanted to really catch him, and by they, I mean all enforcement bodies collectively, from the court to the government to the cops to everything. He's an Interpol notice. It's not a red corner notice, but there's a blue corner notice. French government has also apparently issued a notice on lookout notice for this guy.
Because he speaks bad French. Yeah.
But I don't know.
So basically, there is some political patronage, obviously, that protects him internationally, maybe, or wherever the hell he is, he's able to stay where he is, right? So there
I
has
don't
to be
even know if
influential people
that is
helping him.
true. I don't even know if that is true, but
he's a high-profile guy. He'll stand out in another
I don't
foreign
know
country,
because
and
he made a lot of enemies in the government as well. When we were done filming or halfway through filming, he got a circular listed with the United Nations Human Rights Commission. Nityananda and his people got a notice listed with the UN. Like, I can't believe it. It's on the website. I'll send you a link after this, which says that I am a persecuted sect of Hindu minority. My sect is a persecuted sect within Hindu religion in India, and hence I cannot
political religious asylum.
Hence cannot practice this in the country, and like the government and the RSS and all these bodies are attacking me. Hence, I need political asylum. Imagine getting I guess your minions to draft these letters and have it listed officially on the UN Human Rights Commission website. It's unreal. I just imagine this.
I could tell that story to a foreigner. That's not an unbelievable story to say that, there's a majority with their mandate and they don't let other people mushroom with their slightly different alternate philosophies. It's very easy to push that a little bit, I would think.
Imagine this. The Indian ambassadors are UN, and then there's a general assembly is happening or whatever, and then they're like, oh, so Indian ambassador, what do you have to say about this? It's a joke, the whole thing. One of my favorite bits in the documentary, we met this super senior journalist, Bhagwan Singh, used to be the bureau chief at Deccan Chronicle for more than 20 years. He said that the joke is on all of us. He makes fun of everyone and the joke is on us because we are laughing along, but he is, the joke is on you, everyone who's engaging with him. Okay, I'm feeling really bad. We have to let Abbas talk.
I'm thinking we can bring the Bee Gees. I started a joke here. I started a joke. All right, Abbas,
I had
you don't know the
two
song.
quick questions before we could go to the AMAs. One was, so how he has this whole television empire and everything, so much property. How did he actually make money? Did you have to pay money to become members of the organization?
Yeah.
And did foreigners have to pay more? How did it work out?
Yes, absolutely.
It's racism. Blatant.
No, it's like you go to Taj Mahal, Indian 5 rupees, foreigner 500 rupees.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like you commodify spirituality, right? It's the beginning of all great yoga studios.
Right. So you've got to be on the wanted list.
So it's how to put it. Basically, he would, like I was telling Cyrus in the first half, he had these programs like a 7-day, 21-day, 3-month, and then it's like those what do I call it, upgrade your life type of programs. Feel that it was called inner.
When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous. It really sounds funny. Again, sorry to keep saying that.
Yeah,
7 days to a better path. This sounds wrong, bro. Come on.
So it gets regimented. It's just a simple thing. It's like going to Vipassana or one of these camps and be like, man, my dad was totally into Shiv Khera for some reason. And I said, Dad, but you're not even running some corporate. Why are you into this guy? Because his friend who ran a big shirt company was taken by the lure of Shiv Khera. You can win. That's also a cult. It's a corporate cult.
It is.
So
life coach
I get the lure for it. It was, you have to sign up. And I do know someone who we spoke, who is in the documentary. She told us that for the 7 or 14, 21, the details are fuzzy because there's so much, was a $10,000 program for 21. That's not less money.
Yeah.
That's
what I charge per podcast. Yeah.
Damn, they got me on free. What the hell?
We'll give you conveyance. Are you in Ecuador?
So it's they do this sort of a scheme. But I feel, and again, based on what we researched and what we found out and everything, one of the underreported aspects of Nityananda's thing, and we also couldn't get much headway into it, is his financial fraud, and financial crimes. There is an ED, if you read the ED notice to him by one of the whistleblowers, about him, it's a 3-pager letter with lots of supporting documents saying he's got these fake companies set up in the US, export companies in Malaysia. And that apparently was being run by his brother. So there's all this.
Okay.
Also, he runs a thing called Life Bliss Foundation, the head office for which is Montclair, California.
Okay.
So it is set up like an international net, syndicate, almost, and he also had later on a merch store where you could
wow! We can
Just
buy
like us,
shirt.
Cyrus.
The Swami shirt. We can put it in the wall this year. We can get us one.
So
7 days to enlightenment. Yeah.
There's a book. What he do? It's a basic ass book, like whatever tells you lessons from Swamiji, whatever. So we met the guys to run that like shop because apparently he was raking in like crores a month. So now what happens again? Because you're so enchanted or like entranced with this guy, and it says that okay, this book is for like 600 rupees, for instance, but when there's like a public event at the ashram, so which is not just restricted to the Adi Nivasis or people who live there, which really kind of form the cult. He would on that public day go and sign 100 copies, and then that 600 rupee book suddenly has become 6,000. Swamiji limited edition 100 copies.
Right.
That's it. Like the way he was making in the money.
Sorry, but we've got a smart comment that has to be looked at. Bloody unbelievable.
He's saying views on Godman selling merchandise. I'm part of a cult that recently started selling t-shirts. I think he's talking about us, Cyrus.
He's talking about us, and that's so mean. I mean, that guy's got islands. He's worth crores and crores. We sold 2 t-shirts in 3 weeks, for God's sake. One of them was a relative. I mean, really.
Yeah. So this is, it's quite wild. Like, he had all, like, from Rudraksh malas to books to, like, guides, all sorts of stuff. Like, it's kind of like...
But does it bring down the spiritual, wrong word again, quotient of the entire thing when you have merchandise that sells? Because it's more like a 21st century feel to it, isn't it? I mean, you have to have the t-shirt and the
It's like you want to take a piece of that home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's again like supporting
your
team.
There's holy water that's sold all over the world, and there's, soil and this kind of thing. I mean, people do that. So I'm just asking you. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
It's like Ganga water being sold.
Exactly. Didn't want to say that. Went with the Western civilization for safety, but fair enough.
I mean, Che Guevara is the number 1 cult leader then. He's on every t-shirt.
There you go. Yeah. Follow me at Instagram and Twitter on Bored Brocha. I'm so bored, I need your help. I need your love. I need your touch. Okay, just follow me.
We have to go to the AMA, Cyrus.
Yeah. Let's go.
Cool. So this one comes from Vineet. Vineet says, I understand how illiterate people could fall for such babas, but how come people from developed countries not find it outrageous and follow them?
I think he's answered this to some extent, which is basically where you are in your life, not who you are.
I find that question offensive. It's like, just because you've not read a book, I mean, I feel people who read more books have the most twisted ideas. And what, like, educated, like...
so, Unpad India is...
rich people are the ones fueling such guys, I feel, like, totally. Like, they... Obviously, the capital kidhar se aayega?
Yeah, but going back to your own point in the first half where you mentioned, where are you? Everybody's at a low point, and that's when you're clinging to something else. And it's almost like a remedy that you need. So anybody with all the intelligence and all the consciousness around can suddenly be a victim, if you like. And, that weakness for a short while is enough to exploit it. But it takes a talent. And not everyone is a great Godman. This guy's done pretty well in that sense. That even after the sex scandal, even after the taping expos, even after government oppression, etc., he's still rocking in a sense.
Yeah.
And selling and malas and everything else. Wow.
The next one comes from...
Third eye opening. That was his life.
This one comes from Nimish. They say, general question on documentaries. What are your thoughts on documentaries being accused of not showing the complete truth of all sides? How do you avoid that in your work?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I feel this is a fairly newer, like, phenomena because I guess documentaries have gone through this like they've got this new makeover, like sexy makeover, where it's like, semi-controversial or semi-heavy dialogue and then chord change and like, that all. So we're so overexposed to serial killer cult, these kind of documentaries now.
Yeah.
There's this modern, I can say modern Netflix documentaries.
Do you take a premise from the beginning where you're, I'm trying to investigate this guy, or you also look at it from his point of view? Is I think
Yeah, so I can talk to this question from my point of view, where in this we didn't have the benefit of a conviction or death or a finality. This guy is alive and absconding, which makes it even more challenging legally because a lot of his cases are sub judice, right? So lots of people can't speak with you. Like, you can't have police force speaking with you because they're also in charge sheets or defendants or whatever, right? So in this case, because this guy's absconding, it becomes in a way easier, but also legally and like on the back end, way more complicated to do. So now what also happens with, I guess, the more old school idea, like DD era idea of documentaries is hum pure perspective se sab kuch batayenge, 360 degree. But now it's more like documentaries have become more interweaved with personal narrative, with like, I guess, survival stories interspersed with facts. Like with Nityananda, someone asked me in an interview the other day, was that how come you couldn't get more on his early life, or like, maybe find some kid who played cricket with him in like Tiruvannamalai or something. It's tough because this guy since I guess maybe he was 16 or 18, whenever he figured, they start dispelling all these truths and facts, so to say, facts about themselves and create this aura. Like if you Nityananda is a legit content creator, like he has a website, by the way, you must check it out, called nittipedia.org. I'm not joking.
You got to fit in, boss. You got to fit in today's world.
Of course.
He's been uploading. He is the true content creator. He's had a YouTube channel since like 2008 or whatever. There's over 10,000 hours of like content on that.
Yeah.
So I feel really bad for my archival producer, sorry, Purvi. Like she had to watch so much. At one point, we had a chat, like as a real heart to heart, and I said, Purvi, you cannot just pick the greatest hits and and watch those, because I don't want you to
become a follower.
Yeah. I have a counter question though. I mean, if you look at covering a documentary from the other side, or from the perspective of the perpetrator of crime, in this case Nityanand, aren't you humanizing a criminal?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that's the gray area.
One of the documentaries I was watching around the time when we were going into like research for this, it had a cool dialogue, or maybe I read it somewhere. I don't know. I just adopted it. It said that why do the bad guys get so much press? Like, what about the ones who have had a terrible experience? No, like they are constantly struggling to platform their stories of like, abuse, or, being taken for a ride, or anything.
Or failure.
Of whatever it is, right? Like you are oppressed by this, so to say, the power structure again is skewed, right? So even like the whole Ted Bundy phenomena, right? Ted Bundy kills 100 people, but we are like, Ted Bundy is a hardie. Like, this can't be the takeaway from this documentary.
Right.
Like Charles Manson, oh my God, what great hair. But the Manson family fucked people over.
Right. This one comes from
Saraiya. This is
my mom.
Hi, mom. Hi, Mrs. Saraiya. How are you? Malwa Hill is yours.
The question is, don't you think all these discussions and documentary are giving him more publicity?
Sure. So I find that obviously he is a public face. I mean, obviously everyone has a love-hate relationship with marketing, at least, especially as a creator, right? But you have to use his face to promote, I guess. And then when you watch the docu, and we were very clear about this, while it does paint a larger, brushstroke sort of profile or whatever of him, pop culture knows him as this funny meme baba or whatever. But when you watch the docu over the 2 hour to a 15-minute duration, you realize that it is told through the perspective of survival, and it's not like I sat down with him and been like, aap bataiye.
Yeah, he has to be held accountable end of the day.
Yeah.
It's fair enough.
So
you can't be so unbiased.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. If you're doing a thing on Hitler as well, you might try to go into his mind and see why he was, in his mind, not a racist, but a nationalist, which is in his mind a different concept altogether. End of the day, I mean, the scorecard tells you everything, and you can't just deny the fact that he's just pure evil.
Exactly.
So I guess
couple of questions. This one comes from Nichev, who says, did you interview anyone who visited or tried to visit Kailasa? And a couple of other questions also asking, does he actually have a country called Kailasa? What is...
and can we go on holiday? Because it's really expensive, Spain.
Well, one of the funniest tweets I had found about this, because we had to do this like segment where we were showing tweets about Kailasa and everything. Ravichandran Ashwin, Indian cricketer, said, can I apply for visa on arrival at Kailasa? And it was quite
But it was a doosra from Ashwin.
I think, honestly, I can't say definitely, but like some of the journalists we spoke to in the docu, they were like, so News Minute, Dansa has definitely done an investigation where they figured that there was a bank account being run from somewhere to the coast of South America. And they apparently tracked something down in Vanuatu, which is off the coast of Australia. We also got different like Google pins from people we were in touch with, like through our research, and obviously saying this is where he is guaranteed fixed. We know for sure. Then there's that sort of stuff.
Could he be part of a Colombian cartel?
Yeah, I don't think that they can take him seriously. No, I don't. He'll rat them out or something, and then be like, "These guys are attacking me. Give me asylum."
But when he announces a new currency and he says all these things.
I feel given having watched
and
a lot of his videos,
COVID-free island. Just announced that. No COVID. Yeah.
That's all idiotic. Like, see, that's the thing. People seeing wow. That I'm sure that's my brother.
Luckily, Swami Niti wasn't hot.
That's definitely my brother, I'm sure. But talking about the whole Kailas angle, we did actually meet with not one, two people who he was trying to bring to Kailasa.
Okay.
I guess for the condition of secrecy and not letting their identity be revealed because they're anonymous in the document. I can't divulge more info, but we got to know methodologies that he was using. Like I said, the Nepal escape route is apparently guaranteed. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely
also,
doing.
I mean, when they say the nation of Kailasa, in our heads, it's this huge island that he has. But it can just be like a small complex on an island, right? Which he calls the nation. Yeah.
So one journal we met, Nakiran, who's Nakiran Gopal. He's a legend in Tamil Nadu. He's the Rajnikant of journalists in Chennai, right? He's the guy who, by the way, had tracked down Virappan in the forest. This is that journalist.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah, legend. That's another documentary for another time. He said that this is exactly what he says in the document. He says, this Kailasa, in Tamil, he says, this Kailasa is halwa. So, it's a green screen somewhere, and he's just doing the sermons from there.
Right.
Some guy said it's underground in the Bidadi ashram outside Bangalore. Someone said he's in Nepal only. One guy saying he's near Kailash Parbat, actual Kailash Parbat. I don't think he's surviving that cold weather and all in the Himalayas. But again, there's all this talk about where he could be. What I find
he's joined Kailash Kher's band. And I just had to put it in there. Sorry.
Oh no, most likely he's actually got a job. He's got like a 9-to-5 job with an MNC, and he has another name and whatever, and then he just takes off and goes to the island at 5:30.
That's very possible. I'll double check in the IVM office if there's someone with the resemblance.
Somebody looks to be very tired because he's doing double shifts every day.
Let's just take two more questions. So Rohit Atre has an interesting one. Once they form the cult, do you think the leader gets bored of doing the godmanly things, but the people around do not want them to stop, as it's like 100%. A business now?
100%, because it's like you can't get rid of that that projected image, right? Because now that is super, that is perfect, or that is sanctimonious.
Also, so under pressure to perform, right? All the time, once you're on the top, because now the healing is misfires here and there, and the rape charges are out. So it's almost like he needs to be a lower profile to be a higher profile.
Yeah, you can't break out of character. It's almost like you have created this look. Or sort of a thing for yourself. We heard this from people we interviewed in the docu, right? That once the cameras were off, because he was so camera aware as well, right? He knew when cameras were on. Once cameras were off, he was a different person, is what we were told as well. So you have to
that's one of the things I thought when I learned through the documentary that these meme pages were actually run by people from his organization, which very much means there are people in the organizations who are very self-aware of the fact that he's being laughed at, and they are encouraging that. So it's this very I was under the impression that he actually believes his bullshit, and his followers actually hold him up.
Maybe after a point you do tip over to that side where you have to buy into your own bullshit. Lies told many times over become the truth, sort of thing, right?
It becomes a parody. How can they live it for so many days and not think of it as a parody? But there's a super investigation.
He's in Powai under asylum of Silvery, who's the
producer. It's
very
possible Silvery owns a lot. Silvery's our alternate producer, Naman. And there's a rivalry going on between him and Abbas, a bit like Bog and McEnroe back in the day. And what happens here is Silvery pretends to be poor but owns 5 buildings in Powai and 25 cars. So we've exposed him as another fraud man, if not a Godman, who pretends to be all middle classy when he's really rich and all that. That's so wrong to have that attitude. Silvery, the Godman of the cult of Cyrus.
Not at all. Okay, let's take one last question. This one comes from Bruce Wayne. It's sort of a general question. He asks the panel, what's the most impressive celebrity phone number in your phone?
Batman, Bruce Wayne. What the hell?
I have Vishwas Nagre Patil. The guy who fought the terrorists
the super cop,
single-handedly in Taj, super cop.
I have to check actually.
Most impressive celebrity.
I have this master in Thailand. She
Cyrus,
was
yours must be
fantastic.
full of it, right? I mean, full of numbers. I mean, because
I can hardly use the phone. So what is the point? I'll tell you how many people have promised me their number and not given it. A 2-hour flight with Shah Rukh Khan. We were going to Delhi, where he tells me, "Don't worry, if you have any problem, you just call me. I'll, this is my home or whatever." Then he walks out with 5 bodyguards, never to be seen again. Number never given. Sunil Shetty, we play cricket match. He says this, that, and the other. You must do things here. You give me your number. Take my number, and then he walks off somewhere and never to be seen again. There's so many people have promised and not given, and then you feel really awkward to say, but you said we should have the, you just let it go. Yeah. But no Godman, sadly. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that question was Cyrus. I was also like going to my contact book. I'm like,
no, you, it's for all of us. So you can also reveal if you want.
You go?
I just checked the most. Yeah, Cyrus.
No, and Nityanan must be having a phone, I'm thinking. And the one number he'll want is Naman's.
Contact at srikalasa.org.
I just checked. I have the number of the actor Prakash Raj, which I had because of.
So government hates you. You already made a big mistake. And once again, you put your foot in your mouth. Yeah, you could pick any other name. Yeah.
That's perhaps the most impressive celebrity phone number I have in my phone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I have one or two impressive ones, but it's not working out right now. Maybe Abhishek Bachchan. I don't know why I have that number.
Nikita's interested in the cat. Where's the cat? Is there a cat?
Whose cat is that? Mine, several meows in the background.
Definitely both my cats in the back somewhere. Outside the room, but
good focus of the people listening. They haven't heard a word we're saying, but they pick up the background completely. I mean, giving his heart and soul to a documentary trying to expose a guy and a cult and a sort of a phenomenon in India which is not stopping ever. Okay.
Akshay is asking what is the new format on Monday. He's asking this because Cyrus is going on holiday. Akshay, tune in to find out what the new format is.
Yeah. I'm on leave for a week or so. I'm trying to find Kailasa. Let me see. This is the last I says he moves with that Spanish girl. Well, let's say lady.
This I don't know about.
It's certain vintage. Lady, Rosiki, lady, not. I wouldn't say girl anymore. Yeah, be careful. Just to tell you, Naman, I'm off in 24 hours. Spain, first holiday in 3 years.
Fantastic.
Planning, maybe I'll stay there. Let's see how it goes. But there's a heat wave going on right now. Can you believe it? It's actually 2 degrees hotter there than Mumbai.
Some guy who looks like this. He's like
Lolly saying our country is
why is this
going
Manchester City player posting this?
You want numbers? We want numbers right there. Just check it out. Most famous people in the world. Sunshine. And Abbas has a romance going on in the God, this show sucks.
It's not a romance. It's a fan.
Maybe it's sunshine because there's no windows in the studio.
Well, there's sunshine in her life called Abbas. So everything's changed.
She's now being offensive, saying 2.5 bald men. Like, what the?
Well, he's being sweet then.
You're about to get there.
I got enough.
In fact, I'm actually currently on I wouldn't say it's a documentary, but like a news report about why hair transplants in India are on the rise, but can also be fatal.
Okay.
Fatal?
Yes.
We put hairs on the back of your neck.
There's been about 6 to 8 deaths in the last 3 years from hair transplants in India.
Are you serious? From those small little cilia being put in one at a time?
That's the thing. Like, stay tuned. Well, it's a news report.
Saurabh Katti saying, I thought it was Puneet Panya. It's not. It's Naman Saraiya, and he's made a wonderful documentary. Can we plug the documentary one time?
Yeah, let's plug it. Naman, can we plug it for God's sake? Because I'll have to open the phone otherwise.
So the documentary is called My Daughter Joined a Cult. It's streaming now on Discovery Plus. Great support partners. Sorry, I said it. Great support partners who commissioned this documentary and I guess were helping us along the way in seeing this through, and produced by Fantastic Vice Studios, who I had a great time working with. And,
only 3 episodes and very gripping episodes. So I've seen it. I recommend
watching it. Unlike
if Nityanan, I'm going to watch it right now. If Nityanan offered you 10 crores,
watch it on your flight. Yes, Cyrus. Please watch it on your flight.
I'm downloading it. If Nityanan offered you 25 crores not to make it, would you have stopped?
I'd have taken it and still made it. You can't. With immoral people, sometimes you got to apply immoral.
Fair enough. 2 negatives make a positive. I totally accept your philosophy. Perfect. You're stopping by Netherlands. Let's catch up for a beer.
Are you stopping by Netherlands? Let's catch up for a beer.
Now, how would you go to Barcelona? I mean, even I know that's really stupid. This is not like Hannibal's days. I'll just take a left from the mountain.
Nice.
Yep. Barcelona.
So I have a recommendation for you. There's a restaurant called El Champagnet.
Like champagne?
No, like with an X, Champagnet. Like it's near the Picasso Museum. You have to eat there.
Next month, the Classroom Museum. Try and remember that. Okay, done. But not too expensive now, because the whole thing is scaring me. I'm thinking of staying in the room.
It's like wahan ka Irani cafe, but
Oh,
fantastic.
nice.
So
Oh,
you'll
nice.
fit right in, Cyrus.
I go to Barcelona. Hey, Babas, I ordered a keema pao. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Some akuri. Yeah, so
That's all we need. Globalization sucks, I tell you.
Akshay wants to know if Kunal will be joining for vacation.
He is. We always take him. He doesn't have a family. He goes. Yeah, he freelances with my family, Irani family, and his cousin Welker. So he has 3 vacations a year.
Right for cult membership.
He's a follower. He's a bit of the guy you need to make the cult. The more important person is the guy who follows.
Now the comment section is all about tips for Cyrus's
for your Spain trip.
Which is Alhambra.
I don't have Nityanand's money. Okay, this is what we got. We follow the road. And that's
next summer will be like
Alhambra. It's not exactly Alhambra is somewhere at the other end. Yeah.
Next summer,
listen, guys, we have to
wrap up.
Watch all the stuff on the hair stuff next, and whatever else you make, will be following your career. Abbas, bye till next week or week after.
Bye. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're here, Cyrus. Next week we'll see you.
Yeah, I'm sort of here. Correct. We've done some brilliant tech.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
As Nityanand would say, namaste. Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps, please. We beg you, we need you. Send us your questions on Twitter, on Cyrus Says In. Or you can email us, even if you're not female, on whatcyrussays@gmail.com.